How are mere mortals transformed into these mythical figures that haunt our collective imaginations for centuries? The answer lies not in some sudden metamorphosis, but in the slow, deliberate forging of a weapon that would eventually turn against its makers. Edward Teach, the man who would become Blackbeard, wasn't born a pirate. He was made into one, carefully shaped by the imperial powers that dominated the Atlantic world, the political forces of that era. In our first video, you may recall that for over a decade, 14 years, during Queen Anne's War, Teach served as a privateer. He was licensed to kill. He was a licensed predator, granted legal permission by the British Crown to hunt enemy vessels. In these formative years, he was trained in the tactical brilliance of maritime savagery, with cannons and swords and plunder that would make him infamous, learning his deadly trade with full government blessing. But when peace finally settled across the Atlantic in 1714, thousands of these trained hunters suddenly found themselves without prey, without purpose, and especially without income. What desperation does that create in a man? The empires had forged these men into weapons of war and now expected them to dissolve quietly back into society. Many couldn't, or wouldn't. The transition from privateer to pirate was less a radical transformation than simply a change of paperwork. The skills remained identical. Only the authorization was missing. They created their own. Edward Teach, who was among those who crossed this thin line, joining Benjamin Hornigold's pirate crew in Nassau around 1716. By December of that year, historical records reveal him serving as Hornigold's lieutenant, his natural authority already evident. In just 2 months, he would command his own vessel, and by late 1717, when he captured the French slave ship La Concorde and renamed it Queen Anne's Revenge, the transformation was complete. Blackbeard had emerged from Edward Teach's shadow. Now, in previous videos, we've told the story of La Concorde becoming Queen Anne's Revenge. We've told the story of the audacious blockade at Charleston Harbor. And we've told you about his trade with the equally criminal Governor Charles Eden. Unfortunately, like most political corruption, it is more difficult to nail down precisely. So now, what followed was not a long career, but an incandescent flare of terror that illuminated the colonial Atlantic for mere 2 years. 700 days, that's all it took for Blackbeard to craft a legacy that would echo through centuries. From that moment when he first commanded his own ship, to the blood-soaked morning of his final battle, he burned across history's pages with an intensity few have matched. 2 years. That's how long it takes for an empire to reap what they sow. That's how long it takes for a weapon to recognize his own power. That's how long it takes for a legend to be born. And now, as autumn leaves begin to fall across the colonial Virginia in 1718, that legend faced its greatest challenge. A hunter to extinguish that flame that the imperial powers themselves had first kindled. The hunt for Blackbeard had begun. A beast at bay. The summer of 1718 found Blackbeard nestled in the coastal hamlet of Bath, North Carolina, a settlement barely deserving the name of town, with its handful of wooden structures huddled against the wilderness. Here in this remote corner of the British colonies, the most feared pirate of the Atlantic appeared to have found sanctuary, even respectability. Was this truly retirement, or merely the eye of the hurricane? Those who encountered Teach during those months describe a man who moved with surprising grace through social circles of colonial society. He attended dinners at Governor Eden's mansion, discussed politics with merchants, and even, according to some, married a local girl of 16, his 14th bride, if the whispers are true. But beneath this veneer of civilization, could that beast truly be tamed? The merchants who found their cargoes mysteriously lighter after passing nearby waters thought not. The sailors who recognized crew members from the Queen Anne's Revenge drinking in Bath's only tavern feared not. And the colonial officials whose complaints to Governor Eden went mysteriously unanswered knew not. What thoughts swirled behind those dark eyes that had witnessed countless surrenders? What plans formed in the mind of a man who had tasted absolute freedom upon the lawless waves? Perhaps we'll never truly know, for Blackbeard kept his own counsel, and those who earned his trust rarely lived long enough to betray it. One thing remained certain, that peace could not last. The gathering storm. As summer faded into autumn, the tension grew. Like animals sensing an approaching tempest, the residents of North Carolina's coastal regions grew restless. Something was changing. Blackbeard's periodic absences from Bath became more frequent. Ships reported sightings of the Adventure, his current vessel, in waters where it had no legitimate business. Cargo continued to vanish. Men continued to disappear. These events unfolded against a complex backdrop of colonial politics that few modern minds can fully comprehend. The American colonies were not yet united, but rather a patchwork of competing interests and shifting alliances. Governors operated with remarkable independence, and their remote positions allowing for interpretations of British law that would have shocked London society. Have you ever considered that piracy itself was not merely a criminal enterprise, but a political statement? In an age where imperial powers claimed domination over vast oceans and required licenses for trade, the pirates represented a radical rejection of authority itself. Their black flags declared not just theft, but revolution against the very concept of ordered society. Perhaps this explains Governor Eden's tolerance of Blackbeard. Perhaps it illuminates why other colony officials viewed the pirates' presence with such alarm. This was not merely about stolen cargo or interrupted trade. It was about the fragile foundations of the empire itself. Into this powder keg stepped Alexander Spotswood, a lieutenant governor of Virginia, a man whose ambition was matched only by his calculating intelligence. Spotswood had watched the situation deteriorate for months. Dispatches from Carolina landowners, letters from merchant companies, even communications from British naval officers all found their way to his desk in Williamsburg. Each piece of parchment added fuel to his determination that Blackbeard must be stopped. Not just captured or driven away, but eliminated as a symbol and a threat. There was just one problem: jurisdiction. Blackbeard operated primarily in North Carolina waters, outside of Spotswood's authority. And what's more, he appeared to have purchased protection from Governor Eden himself, creating a political quagmire that would deter most officials. But Alexander Spotswood was not most officials. In secret meetings held in candlelight in the governor's mansion, Spotswood outlined a plan so audacious it bordered on illegal. He would personally finance an expedition to hunt Blackbeard, circumventing normal channels of operation and operating under the thinnest veneer of legal authority. He justified this by citing instances where Blackbeard had violated Virginia law, arguments that would likely crumble under legal scrutiny. but provided enough cover for his purposes. For this mission, Spotswood needed someone exceptional, someone whose courage matched his cunning, whose discipline would not waver in the face of terror. He found such a man in Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy. The hunter. What manner of man agrees to hunt a legend? What qualities must one possess to believe they could succeed where so many had failed? Lieutenant Robert Maynard's name has been overshadowed by his quarry in the annals of history, yet his story deserves examination. Documents from the period describe him as methodical, reserved, and possessed of uncommon courage, high praise in an age where bravery was expected of naval officers as a matter of course. Unlike the flamboyant captains who often commanded British vessels, Maynard was a professional in the modern sense, a man who approached warfare as a problem to be solved, rather than an opportunity for glory. His previous engagements had demonstrated his tactical mind that recognized when to strike directly and when subtlety would prevail. On a crisp autumn day in 1718, Maynard stood in Spotswood's study, listening as the governor outlined the mission. I wonder if his pulse quickened at the mention of Blackbeard's name. Did doubt flicker briefly across his features before determination set in? We can only imagine these human moments, lost to time's passage. What records tell us is that Maynard accepted the assignment without hesitation, requesting only the resources necessary for success: 2 shallow draft sloops that could navigate the treacherous waters of North Carolina's Outer Banks, and men he could trust with his life. The vessels chosen were the Jane and the Ranger, modest ships that would attract very little attention. Their very ordinariness would be essential to Maynard's strategy. The crews were selected with equal care. Experienced sailors who had faced combat before, men who could follow orders without question when the moment of crisis arrived. As preparations accelerated, Spotswood's network of informants brought crucial intelligence. Blackbeard had been sighted at Ocracoke Inlet, a labyrinth passage through the Outer Banks that the pirate used so frequently locals had become calling it the Teach's Hole. The timing seemed almost providential. The pirate had returned to familiar waters just as the hunter finished sharpening his blades. On November 17th, 1718, with a biting wind heralding winter's approach, the expedition departed from Kecoughtan, known today as Hampton, Virginia. The small flotilla slipped away without ceremony or public announcements. 60 men sailing toward a rendezvous with history. The approach. Have you ever tried to navigate the Outer Banks? Even today, with GPS and modern charts, these waters claim vessels regularly, every year. Shifting shoals, hidden currents, and sudden storms that transform seemingly placid surface into a maritime labyrinth. In 1718, traversing these waters required intimate knowledge or extreme caution. Maynard's expedition chose caution, sailing only by daylight and anchoring in protected waters each evening. The journey south became a test of patience as much as seamanship. Every day brought them closer to their quarry, but also deeper into the waters that favored the local knowledge that Blackbeard possessed in abundance. As this small flotilla navigated this treacherous seascape, Maynard refined his strategy. Direct confrontation would be suicidal. Blackbeard's reputation for ferocity had been earned in countless bloody engagements. Instead, deception would be their primary weapon. The sloops would approach as ordinary merchant vessels, hiding their true purpose and strength until the critical moment. Was this dishonorable? Some might say so. Naval tradition emphasized direct engagement, ships flying their colors proudly as they closed in for battle. But Maynard understood that tradition made poor armor against cannonballs, and honor provided cold comfort to widows. He would use whatever advantage necessary to complete his mission. The plan took final shape in a council held aboard the Jane as the inlet came into view. Most men would remain hidden below decks, creating the impression of undermanned trading vessels. Only when Blackbeard committed to attack would they reveal their true numbers and purpose. It was a strategy that demanded perfect timing and iron discipline. As dawn broke on November 22nd, 1718, a local pirate guided Maynard's vessels through the narrow winding channels of Ocracoke Inlet. Through wisps of morning mist, the unmistakable silhouette of the adventure materialized. Blackbeard's vessel anchored in a sheltered cove, its presence both confirmation and challenge. Had they truly found him? Or had he found them? Confrontation. I wonder what thoughts crossed Blackbeard's mind when he first spotted the approaching sloops. Did he sense a trap closing around him? Or did arrogance blind him to his danger? The historical records offer tantalizing fragments, but the pirate's true thoughts, of course, remained locked in time's vault. We know this much. The precious night had been spent in revelry. Blackbeard and his crew had been drinking heavily, celebrating a recent prize, or perhaps simply enjoying the temporary safety of their hidden anchorage. When dawn revealed these strange sails approaching through the channel, the pirates were not at their sharpest. Yet, even in this compromised state, Blackbeard's instincts flickered to life. Something about the approaching vessels triggered his suspicion. Perhaps they moved with too much purpose for ordinary merchant ships. Perhaps their course through the treacherous channel was too confident. But for whatever reason, the pirate captain ordered his men to the battle stations. "Cut the cable," he commanded, choosing to meet threat directly rather than remaining anchored and vulnerable. As the Adventure's crew scrambled to their positions, Blackbeard transformed himself into that terrifying figure that had become his trademark. He loaded multiple pistols and strapped them across his chest. He placed slow-burning matches beneath his hat, allowing smoke to curl around his face like some demonic manifestation. And with each calculated gesture, Edward Teach receded and Blackbeard emerged. Not just a man, but a living nightmare designed to paralyze enemies with fear before the battle even commenced. Aboard the Jane, Lieutenant Maynard observed these preparations with the cold calculation of a professional hunter. The transformation unfolded on the Adventure's deck only confirmed that what he already knew. They faced not merely a criminal, but a master of psychological warfare. The smoking beard, the bristling weapons, even the wild eyes and enhanced by the previous night's drinking, all were components of a carefully crafted persona designed to overwhelm rational thought with primal terror. As the distance between the vessels began to close, Blackbeard's voice thundered across the water. "Damn you villains! Who are you and where have you come from?" The moment of decision had arrived. Maynard chose to maintain his deception. "We are merely sailing to the Carolinas." Blackbeard's response left no doubt that his pretense had failed. "I see you are King George's man, prepared to die like dogs." Without further warning, the Adventure unleashed a devastating broadside, grape shot. Small iron balls packed together in canvas bags swept across the deck of Maynard's vessels. designed not to sink ships but to clear their decks of human opposition. Several men fell immediately, their bodies torn apart by the metallic storm. Had Blackbeard played into Maynard's hands, or had Maynard's plan merely survived first contact with the enemy? Either way, the lieutenant had anticipated this opening move. And with most of his men hidden below deck, the casualties were fewer than Blackbeard expected. The sloops appeared devastated, their decks nearly empty of defenders, and while below, Maynard's men waited tensely for the signal to emerge. Seeing what appeared to be easy prey, Blackbeard ordered his men to board Maynard's vessel and finish the survivors. The Adventurer pulled alongside the Jane. The grappling hooks flew across the narrowing gap behind the ships together for boarding action. Blackbeard himself led the charge, cutlass in hand, leaping onto the Jane's deck with fearsome cry. "Where is your captain?" he roared, scanning the apparently deserted deck for worthy opposition. In response, Lieutenant Maynard emerged from the companionway. Sword drawn, their eyes met across his blood-slicked deck. The professional soldier and the pirate legend, each recognizing in the other a formidable opponent. At Maynard's signal, the hidden sailors burst onto the deck, weapons ready. Blackbeard's expression registered brief surprise before transforming into a grim smile of recognition. "Well done, Lieutenant," the pirate acknowledged. "Let's see how well you fight." What followed was chaos distilled into its purest form. The confined deck of the Jane became a theater of violence as pirates and naval men clashed in desperate close-quarters combat. Pistol shots cracked through the moaning air, followed constantly by the clash of steel on steel as swords and cutlasses met in lethal arcs. Through this maelstrom, Maynard and Blackbeard sought each other out. The lieutenant understood that to end this conflict quickly, he must defeat the pirate captain. His men, though brave, might break if the fearsome Blackbeard continued to fight. The legend must be destroyed for the man to fall. As they closed on each other, history held its breath. The hunt for Blackbeard had reached its climax. On these blood-washed decks, only one would emerge victorious from this brutal encounter. But what happened in those final moments? How did this legendary confrontation conclude? That, my friends, awaits us in our next chronicle, the death of Blackbeard. There we will witness the astonishing final stand of a man who required 5 bullets and 20 sword cuts before surrendering his mortal form to the ages. And beyond that bloody conclusion, the mystery only deepens. For in The Ghost of Blackbeard, we'll explore how death proved merely the beginning of a new chapter in the Teach legend, as his spectral form, Ghost, is said to still haunt the Outer Banks, searching eternally for his severed head. Finally, in The Legend of Blackbeard's Treasure, we will follow the tantalizing trails of gold and precious gems that have lured countless treasure hunters to their doom, wealth accumulated during 2 brief years of terror, but never truly accounted for. And now we leave our tale at the precipice of the most dramatic moment. 2 men, steel in hand, massive gunships at their disposal, and destiny balanced between them like a compass needle seeking true north. Lieutenant Robert Maynard, disciplined, methodical, righteous in his mission. Edward Teach, unpredictable, terrifying, fighting for his very existence. The sun climbs higher over Ocracoke Inlet. The waters continue their eternal dance with the shore. And somewhere in this tableau of violence, the man and the legend prepare to separate. As all legends and myths must eventually disentangle themselves from their mortal creators, the hunt is over. But next week, the final battle will begin.